also those viewing at home. So welcome. Extraordinary business. I have one item and would be taken in committee. Item number 25 will be as EA Shareholder Committee appointment. Can I move in a second that we receive that?
I'll move that.
Councillor McMillan, Councillor Brown, all in favour please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. Sorry, the reason for it being in committee and urgency is the appointments committee met on Monday, and the decision today will avoid the person who's been appointed having to wait till the 28th of July so they can go on that committee and do some work. And it's in committee because it's protecting persons' privacy. Thank you. So item number 3, declarations of interest. Any members declaring anything today? No. And item number 4, the confirmation of the minutes. Any alterations or additions on page 3? 4. Page 5.
Go on.
Oh, sure.
We can't change it, but the top of page 4, they say the Canterbury Health Board say they're moving into Tier 3. Yesterday's paper said they haven't had enough vaccines to finish Tier 2. So why they told us when it was that they're moving into Tier 3 was completely incorrect.
Okay. Thanks for the comment. Page 5. Page 6. So I'd like to move that the minutes of the 16th of June Council meeting be taken as read and confirmed. Councillor Mackay, Councillor Brown, all those in favour please say aye. Aye. Carried. Any matters in there that won't be addressed later on that needs to be? And I'm just thinking of one thing, Waitahi Health Board and Councillor Cameron may help here. I think they're organising a meeting with community to discuss something. I think you're across it more than I. Councillor Mackay, if you just put your light off, please.
There is a meeting discussing a multidisciplinary group with all comers on it, discussing a response to the state of emergency and where the gaps were and how we can prepare better moving forward.
So they're looking at holding a public meeting to do that?
As I understand, yeah.
Yeah.
Only from that email that you and I got, I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, looking for a venue.
Yeah.
They had one up in, was it Rangiora?
Yeah.
And they want to expand down here.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Next item is the 5, the Methven Community Board meeting minutes there, and we'll welcome the Chairman, Dan McLaughlin, and someone would like to give Dan speaking rights if needed. Move and second it.
I will.
Councillor McMillan, Councillor Wilson, all in favour please say aye. Aye. And move in a second to receive the minutes.
I'll move.
Councillor McMillan, Councillor Rawlinson, we'll put the motion, all in favour please say aye. Aye. Carried. And there's one item for, Dan, if you want to come forward even, one item, the recommendation to Council that the Methven Community Board requests that the Council undertakes a review of the Methven Strategic Plan and reports back to the Board. Did you want to speak to it at all, Dan?
Yeah, good afternoon everybody. Just a quick bit of history on that. The strategic plan was done in 2009. Had a big input from the community in Methven for a council thing to go out for a strategic plan. It was a good turnout. I think we had 3 workshops and come up with a strategic plan. 2014, there was a stock take or review done of it, and a few things were relevant, 3 things are not. And then the last 3 years, Methven Community Board have put a lot of effort into the Igniting Change project. So at the moment, we've got the old 2009 one, the 2014 review, and all the work we've done over the last 3 years. So we'd like a review of all that information put together to see what we can do going forward to do a new strategic plan. So that's what the recommendation was about.
Thanks, Dan. Any questions of Dan, anyone? If not, Carolyn.
What was the motivation for that, Dan? Just a timing thing? It had been a long time since the last one, or was there anything particular?
It had been a long time since the last one, and because we've done so much work over the last 3 years from the community board's point of view, and Methven changing what you'd call quite dramatically over the last couple of years and looking like it's going to change dramatically. It seems like good timing. Yeah.
Councillor Lovett.
I'm just going to ask, whose budget will this come out of? Councils or the Methans or the Community Board or where, yeah, where does it sit?
Is that a Tony question or Hamish?
I think the starting point would be let's do the review and see the extent of the cost involved. Clearly, the Methven Community Board and the Methven community are seeking the review and need to be involved in the funding. But equally, we're a partner with the Community Board in the operation of Methven, so there may well be a shared cost arrangement.
Someone like to move?
I will.
Oh, Lane.
Yep.
Lane moved, and Lynette second. Any further discussion? Angus.
Oh, now it's moved. I actually have a question because I was unsure what was going to be moved.
What's moved
But
there?
I read it that the Methven Community Board requests the council. Is that correct? So who pays is the council because it's going to undertake the review and then report back to the board. So the way it reads with me is the council, and I'll be in favour of that.
As I suggest, I think there'll be a shared cost. The Methven Community Board have a stake in the review of their own strategic plan as well, so it's not just up to council, but council has a role and the costs need to be shared in my view.
Councillor Mackay.
I've just changed my vote. Thank you.
We're going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Recorded?
Yes, because
Lionel.
because payments involved, yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Biodiversity, item number 6, the Biodiversity Advisory Group. And we need to receive those minutes. Councillor McMillan, Councillor Cameron.
I just wanted to note Barry Austin's name's in there twice for present.
Okay, so the Biodiversity Group will alter that, won't they?
Yeah,
They
and
will.
then I'll
Yep.
move to a
And
second.
you moved in, and who had seconded? I had Lynette, was it? Seconded. Yep, so I'll put the motion. If there's no discussion on those minutes, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried, thank you. Item number 7, Youth Council. We have a move and a second. Have we received their minutes?
I'll move that.
Diane and Lane. Any discussion on those minutes? If not, I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Item number 8, to reports. Here is the one we've been working on for 18 months, 2 years to get it to this day. And Tony and her team have been working hard over that time to get us here. It's been a big job, it always is. We've had consultation, we've had workshops, we've had consultation, we've had deliberation, we've had decisions, and now we're ready to adopt this long-term plan, which will set us up for the next 10 years, with 3 years in detail. So, Tony, if you hand over to you, anything further to add? And we do have some additional papers. We have an audit report here.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, it's a bit of a milestone moment at this point, getting the LTP to here, so I do appreciate all of your hard work. I know you're probably sick of the sight of the team and I coming back and asking you questions. I recall the conversation about 18 months ago when we talked about the LTP being an elephant, and trying to work out how we work our way through an elephant is that we chunked it off into little bites. So today we're looking just to finish off eating the tail so we can get on and get on with the work ahead of us. So the two papers that you've got in front of you were circulated yesterday. One is the auditor's report around our long-term plan. I don't think there's any surprises in there. The qualification does exist for the second bridge assumptions that we've got, which was the same as what we had for the consultation document. Also circulated with this is just some minor wording changes that were picked up by audit in the last last throes of the audit, so to speak. So they've been made into the LTP, and once adopted, that will be available online for people to see on our website.
Any questions of Tony? Stuart?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. That second page, are there any alterations in it, or is it just there for information?
Sorry, this is in relation to the key projects?
Yes.
Yes, no, this is just an update. There's no changes in there. It was just reflecting the prioritisation that came out of the consultation deliberations.
Just before I go to Caroline, just on number 3 in the background, Hamish, was a correction there.
Yes, just noting in the background report, paragraph 3 refers to 20% central government funding, should be 29%. And the only reason I really clarify that is because it is subject to the audit letter, so just making sure council have a clear understanding of the amount that's not funded that is the subject to the audit office opinion.
Councillor Cameron?
I have a question with regards to the CBD targeted rate for the street, in a CBD business targeted rate for the street cleaning. I understand the list long-term plan is audited, so cannot be changed, but I've been led to believe that there has been no street cleaning undergoing or taken on in the CBD for, I think, 18 months to the minimum. I'm reasonably confident got that correctly. Is there an opportunity to roll that money over to the following year? That collected rates, it's about 0.0005 cents per dollar, which for a capital value of 500,000 is about $250 per business in the CBD.
Tony or Paul?
Through Mr. Mayor, we'll look at, when we do our carryovers, calculate what the unspent portion of this, and we'll look to get council approval to carry that forward.
Thank you, Paul.
The unspent portion will only be for probably up until December, because once it's handed back, then there will be monies in there which will be used for the cleaning of the CBD. But good point. Okay. Angus, I'll go to Angus and then come back.
No,
Okay.
yeah, if it hasn't been used from the previous year, I'm assuming in the annual washout there will be unspent portion of the previous year as well. Beg your pardon, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through Mr. Mayor, we'll be looking at carrying over from the year that's just finishing now.
Yep, 6 months.
And then if there's some money unspent in the new year, we'll look at the end of that year what the result is.
Thank you.
Good outcome. Angus?
Mr. Mayor, has the final document been printed yet?
Through the chair, no, it hasn't.
Oh, good. May I ask 4 questions, please?
Yes.
In part 2 of part 2 on page 173, no need to look it up, just part 2 of 2, page 173, there's a large number of projects for the first 3 to 4 years, relatively small in number of projects. It's partly due to these projects simply not yet being identified.
Thank you. We'll pick that one up in
And
the final
on
proof.
page, more importantly, on part 1 of 2, on page 195, I didn't think Darryl Nelson was any longer a Museum Trust appointee.
Yeah, correct. I think me reading it too, there was another name in there which
Now,
wasn't.
also experienced Mid-Canterbury director, is experienced Mid-Canterbury still in existence?
No, it's not.
No, it's
that was
been
the
round
other thing
up.
I picked up, yeah.
Okay, and the very latest, which I wouldn't expect you to pick up, but it's in the agenda today, Councillor Mackay is no longer a member of the Canterbury Community Water Trust,
Thank you. We'll make sure that
representing Ashburton and Selwyn, but it's in the Mayor's report later on, so you're not
we'll
expected.
bring that through. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for the clarifications. Any other questions? Could I seek a mover for the recommendation? Need a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the report. Councillor Falloon, Councillor Brown, moved and seconded. Open for discussion, debate. There being none, I'll just make a comment. Councillor, there is, John.
Yeah.
Do you want to have your moving remarks?
Yeah,
Movers
thank you,
remarks.
Mr Mayor. As part of moving it, I would also like to pay thanks to all of the staff members who have gone beyond the mile to actually produce such a huge bloody document. To me, it shows the quality of it, and to come back with as few audit requests as we've come back with, to me shows the quality and the professionalism that our officers have put into the production of this report. Congratulations.
Thank you. Anyone else just wish to speak to the motion or against the motion? I'll just make a comment that, councillors, this is one of our main jobs, is to produce this document, and the staff have helped us do that and very aptly done that, so we congratulate them for that. And if there being no further speakers, I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 9, which follows the long-term plan adoption, which is the setting of the rates for the 21-22 year. Without this motion, we won't be able to collect the rates, so it is important as the plan. Rachel, anything to add?
So through the chair, this is the setting of the rates for year 1 of the LTP only. So this is the year coming, the 21-22 year, and all the numbers in here, they come out of the decisions and the numbers that were generated as part of the LTP process. So there's nothing in here that is different to what you've seen in the LTP.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
I'm just looking under the Mount Hutt Memorial Hall rate, 0.00000 per dollar on the capital. But we've left it there regardless.
Through the chair, in the actual LTP document itself, you need to have comparatives. So we have had to show that rate because last year we had one. And so we have just left it in there just for clarity, because in future years that will be rated for again. It was only a decision for year 1 to remove that.
That's right.
Councillor Floon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Top of page 20, Methven Springfield water supply rate. Is that figure of $197.30 per 1,000 litres of water correct? Because it seems bloody expensive water. That's an excess.
Yeah,
Rachel?
yeah. Through the chair, that is in excess of the 12,000. So it's only if they go above that number.
That number there. You sure it's correct? It does seem a lot if you go over 12,000 litres. It looks a lot, but
If you give me a couple of minutes, I can go back and check on the last rates resolution as well. But I do believe that it is correct. But I will double check for you.
should we check that before we adopt this?
Yes.
So we will wait for you to just to check it. Thanks.
Through Mr Mayor, there's just a second number I wouldn't mind checking as well while we're doing that. So perhaps we can discuss it, any other matter, and then just leave it on the table for a minute, while we make 100% sure about another number in here too.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I've just got a question on the corrected Methven Community Board rating area map. When is it likely to be reviewed again? Because I see that the Time Stream subdivision, the new Kakariki subdivision, they're not included at the moment. It was a request that they would be. When would the next review be for those, please?
Thank you. Through the chair, that's an excellent question. So what we were hoping to do with the Local Government Commission was to request a minor boundary amendment. We put everything through to the LGC in December, and we only heard back from them late May, just before the floods. Unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to make any minor boundary amendments in time for the next election, so that actually pushes us out to the timing of the next representation review, which is in 2023, which actually will be here. We'll probably start work on that in 22 for the 23 adoption. So we're closer than we think, but at the same time we were disappointed that we couldn't get that moved along, because we really appreciate and understand that that's an issue for the Methven Community Board.
Here we go, Rachel, still need a bit more time?
Yeah.
Okay. What was your question?
Yes, I just want to clarify a number on page 19, which will just take us a minute. So it's my suggestion that we just pause this matter and clarify those two issues.
So I think we've finished all question time. Shall we just adjourn the meeting for... Okay. Yep, we'll let the matter lie on the table while that happens. Someone like to move that we do that?
I'll move.
Liz, then seconded. Joanne, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. And we'll move on to the next item of business and come back to it once we've had that clarification. So over to item number 10. Procurement Guidelines Review, i.e. buying local. Mel, this is your report. Do you have anything further to add?
Nothing further to add.
Okay, we'll go to questions, councillors. Carolyn.
Thank you through you, Mr Mayor, for the report. I have some questions with regards to the options. One of them was that we haven't seen option 1, revert. I'm just trying to find the area now. I've moved on to brothel bylaw. Page 31. Hold on. Current situation. We haven't seen, I think it was written down, we haven't seen the dip that was expected with COVID. Furthermore, the impact of COVID on businesses within the district has not been as severe as was expected 12 months ago. That's page 30, point number 4. Do we have some evidence for that? Because most of those businesses are shut down, so I don't see how that could be less severe. And then that is at odds with the recommendation under option 1.8. It could be argued that we're not doing enough to support our local economy as the effects of COVID may not be fully seen for some time. So I'm not sure which advice to pay attention to there.
Thank you, through the chair. So in terms of the point made in point number 4 on page 30, that was around what we're seeing coming through Infometrics. We haven't seen a massive dip, so to speak, in our spend as a district. Not to say that we might not see it in the future, so I can understand where you're coming from in terms of the contradictory advice.
Thank you.
Have I answered your questions?
Yeah, I have additional remarks. Do you want me to hang up?
Comment, I think averages are sometimes a good thing, and averages are smoothing this out. There will be some businesses there who have been impacted very, very severely, and others who have actually gained from COVID.
That's right.
But on average,
That's
it's
right.
still sitting the same. So
I think the
we know what your
Infometrics-
comment is about. Yeah.
I think the Infometrics report highlighted sectors like retail that had suffered quite badly, whereas other sectors like industrial had done quite well. So I think yeah. Can I ask some additional questions? I was a little bit disappointed, or shall I wait for the discussion?
Is it a question?
Well, it is a question.
If there's a question, yep.
I was a little bit disappointed with the extent of the buying local, and I can only see 3 reasons for that. Like, we're too expensive locally, we've already bought all we can, or we've been slow to change our purchasing direction to buy local. Can you give me some examples of where purchasing local has altered through the chair within the council?
You mean for council purchasing?
Correct.
So through the chair, as officers, we're quite bound by the procurement policy, and as public servants, we have to make sure that we are buying and purchasing within the bounds of our policy. So the $10,000 threshold, anything over and above that, we're obligated to make sure we're doing the right thing by our ratepayers who are funding things at that point in time. In terms of I think there's a little bit of, it's not as easy just to drop out information from our procurement system as it might seem on face value to be able to say, oh, let's look at all our local suppliers, because some local suppliers may supply here but actually have a base in Christchurch. So dropping out that data is a bit more challenging than what we've been able to find. We've tried to find a sweet spot here in terms of this allows us to give a little bit of a premium to local suppliers when they meet the guidelines, because we appreciate we all live here as well, and we want to make sure our local businesses are strong and support them as much as possible, while also balancing the need to make sure we are spending prudently as public servants.
I have another 2 questions. I could not hear an example of where procedures have changed, so I assume that's just the staff are generally aware to buy local if possible, but nothing comes to mind at the moment.
Oh, sorry, no, the actual guidelines themselves that we operate under, they changed, and that got communicated.
I recall that.
Yes,
yeah.
so that got communicated to all managers, and all staff are expected to follow that.
Yeah, but it hasn't appeared to have changed, if I'm correct in understanding the report very much. So my question is, do we take into account the whole of life costs, like environmental and sustainability costs, rather than just upfront purchases when we're making our purchasing decisions in the council?
So in the actual procurement policy itself, it does talk of looking at it from more than just a financial transaction. We've used some guidelines that have come out of central government around that, so it isn't purely based on price. It's looking at that more holistic view.
No more questions? Yes, Councillor Flint.
Yeah, I'm looking at the actual principles here. We've got moderate 10,000, well, I'm on bottom of page 29 here. We've got moderate $10,000 to $75,000 worth of purchases. And it's got the local value principle should be prioritised. However, the best overall deal for the ratepayer must be a priority. Don't have a problem with that at all. I think that's fine. My question though is, why cannot the same principles be applied to the high over $75,000 one? Because what we're looking at is the best deal for the ratepayer, but we're also looking to prioritise local. So I cannot see why the ones that relate to the 10 to 75 can all not relate to the ones over 75.
Through the chair, I guess I might actually pass this one over to Mr. McCann in terms of often his procurement is in that range when you're doing tenders and that large scale work. He might be able to explain the thinking that goes on in a tender process better than I could.
Yeah, through the chair, generally with the bigger contractors of that size, one does then look at quality and previous relevant experience and track record. It comes into play for the bigger costs contracts. But I'm talking more specifically the bigger $100,000s and $1 million, whether it's 75 to 100 or 150. Maybe that figure could be looked at in future, but generally at that sort of level, we are focusing on quality more so in construction of construction projects.
So, Tony, just a question on that. Coming from there, if we wanted to put the 5% piece into that band, how easy or simple would that be? Would it have to go out for consultation, or could we do that here? So it gives locals a 5% advantage on their price in that next band of 10 to 75,000.
Sorry, I haven't got the policy sitting right in front of me to be able to go back to. This is sitting in the guidelines itself. I'm not sure if it's replicated through into the policy. The guidelines itself, if you give us a direction, we can change those things. I'm just concerned about going in and setting a direction now in a policy without having done the work to understand the implications of that. My advice would be, if that's the direction you're looking to give, that we go away and do the work and come back and make sure you are well aware of what the implications might be, and if that does trigger the need to have consultation or not.
Okay.
Yes, we couldn't guarantee that our year one budgets are adequate if council's policy decision is to add 5% to all purchasing less than 75,000. That would be that's quite a material alteration to setting the rates, adopting the LTP. And at the very least, I would support Tony's contention that you'd need to see a report on that before you can make that change. And of course, you are setting the rates and adopting the LTP budgets today. So one of the concerns will be this policy is, if it's to alter, will be a little bit at odds with other big decisions that you have to make today.
Okay, thanks for that. Caroline.
I did a little bit of reading around different district territorial authorities, and we note that Timaru, they have a 5% on the lower value to a maximum of $2,000. But something I liked that was in Christchurch, I wonder if it could be included with regards to the Mayor's remark in our local policy or guidelines or whatever they are, is more than three quarters, or they want more than three quarters of their spend local, but they're a bigger area than we are, but they have a stated objective to foster local businesses in their procurement policy. So I think I would like to see that we would like to support local where possible and depending on what the council put as the limits. But if we have that objective, I think would signal the intention that we recognise the importance of spending locally.
Through the chair, from memory, there is something like that in our policy already. It's just then we've broken these down into thresholds to say how we could actually action that and what that looks like. The policy is due for review in 2023. Policies, like you always know, they can be pulled forward, but it'll be at the consequence and the effect of dropping something else back.
Angus?
Mr. Mayor, my question is to you and only to you. If you think that there is a move to alter the policy, and if it was your wish, I would be willing to move that the motion lie on the table until a report comes back from staff. I'll leave that matter in your hands to advise me what you'd like me to do.
I don't want to advise you at all, but if you think it's prudent that we would do that, then you move such a motion.
You push, I'll hang up.
I'm having trouble gauging the feeling around the tables. That's why I asked you.
Well, there's one way to gauge that measure, and that is to move the motion and see if you get a seconder if you want to report. Hang on. We'll have to come back to you, Angus.
I've got my light on to second that motion, if it was so moved. Or I can move the motion.
We will have to ask Councillor Mackay what the motion is. And if Lynette, you go score off, Angus, come on.
Okay.
Angus, now go on.
Well, the motion was going to be procedural, so if you get a move and a seconder, it's absolute. We just don't discuss it any further today. That's the problem with the motion. That's why I asked you.
Yeah, what motion would you put? All right. So you'd like we'll go to Caroline, we'll come back to you. Caroline, we'll do the lights.
I would like to second the motion.
No, there's no motion there at the moment.
But
Your question is if
Hang on. Leave your lights on until you finish talking.
Through the chair.
And do it through the chair, because you're finishing half your conversation, you're turning your light off, and then we're missing half of it. Lynette.
I would just say I'd like to move the motion we've got sitting here, because we have been round and round this subject before, and at the end of the day it is the ratepayers' money we're spending, and we've got to get best value for the ratepayer out of this, and we've discussed a lot of this, and yeah, I'd just like to move what we've got, the motion sitting here on the table.
Right, Councillor Lovett has moved the motion that we have in front of us, which is Council rolls over the local procurement guidelines until the next review of the procurement policy in 2023. Councillor Brum, you wish to second?
I'm second that.
Open for discussion. Open for discussion. Being no discussion, I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Setting a rate, so we got some answers there yet, or can we?
Yes, we have. I think Rachel can clarify the matter that was raised by councillors, and the matter that was troubling me has been satisfactorily resolved such that the draft rates resolution is correct. So we don't need to worry about that one.
Okay, so we'll move back to item number 9, and that matter was laying on the table, so we'll need to uplift it. Councillor Wilson moves we uplift that matter. Councillor McMillan seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. Rachel, we had a question there.
Yes, so through the chair, the Methven Springfield water supply rate, I can confirm there is 2 portions to it, and you can see that on the top of page 20. There is a fixed portion, and that covers 12,000 litres of water. Over and above that, there is a charge per 1,000 litres of water. So there are the 2 components, and that is correct.
I think I understand it now. There's no water meter on there, but it's but a restrictor. So you're buying an extra 1,000 litres, which is not 1,000 litres in volume, it's entitlement to 1,000 litres, is that right?
I would need to check that with Neil, yeah.
It's the entitlement to the 1,000 litres.
I think it's correct, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so it does make sense when you look at along those lines. So we haven't had a mover or a seconder for that yet. John Falloon, for the recommendation setting of the rates.
Yes, I will move.
And there's quite a few pages there. Did you want to read them to us or take it as read?
I'll take it. I'll take it as read.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Any further discussion on the setting of rates? I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 11. The brothel location bylaw. Who's done the field trip? We have a motion, recommendation in front of us that council rolls over the current brothel location bylaw with minor amendments. Mel, anything to add to the report?
Nothing further to add.
Questions, councillors? Lane?
Oh, sorry, I'm quite happy to...
We'll get questions first. We'll take
Okay.
questions first. I just have one question. Since it's number 5 in the current situations, put number 5. Since the last review of the bylaw, council's received no complaints nor queries. So would people know to complain or query? Can they? How would they complain if they wanted to?
They ring me, Mr Mayor. I've only had one complaint, and that was a long time ago, not long after I started here.
Right, thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Do we have 3 sensitive sites, as I understand, churches, well, more than 3, churches, maraes and schools, preschools, kindergartens, things. Is that, through the chair, is that a common number of sites to have?
Through you, Mr Mayor, some councils list an awful lot of sensitive sites. I recall when this council considered the bylaw, they didn't want a big, long, complicated list. They kept it pretty simple. And the fact that we haven't had any complaints would suggest that what you've got is working.
Councillor Falloon.
I note that SUBs do not have to have any sort of consent to operate type of thing. But unless we got a complaint, would we ever know that a SUB was more than a just self-employed, but was having a commercial operation?
What's a SUB?
Through you, Mr Mayor, a SUB is a small owner-operated brothel, and complaints would be the only way you would know. I mean, we don't drive around the suburbs looking for brothels, unsurprisingly. And in some towns that has been an issue when they have become much bigger than SUBs. But again, that's not an issue that we've had here.
That means you have to be under 5 foot too.
Any further questions, councillors? If not, recommendation. And Lane?
Yes, yes, and I especially like the 2 words roll over.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll put the motion on in favour, please say aye. Item number 12. And welcome, Richard. Consultation and disposal of Grove Street Park. Richard, any further to add to your report?
Just one point. I had referred in the report to an attached appendix which
did not get attached. And that was an appendix that had the full text of section 138 of the Local Government Act. And my main reason for wanting to attach that is that it makes it clear that council must consult on a proposal to sell or dispose of a park before it so sells or disposes or agrees to sell or dispose. So essentially, I just wanted to reinforce that if you want to entertain this proposal, then you have to consult. But you do have one other option today, which is if you didn't want to dispose of the park, then you could adopt option 1. I haven't recommended option 1, and I don't want to prejudge the outcome of this or any other related processes, but it's not difficult to envisage that the subdivision proposal would, in the fullness of time, actually provide an additional and even better park for playground purposes in the vicinity. So I think your best options are options 2 or 3, and I have recommended option 2 simply because the way in which the subdivision has been marketed means it looks like council has already agreed to something which you haven't even considered, and hence my recommendation for option 2.
Okay, questions? Councillor Mackay.
Mr Mayor, do we have any indication where the officer believes that a better park may be? Because I've got the maps in front of me that you attached and I can't see one. I presume it's further away, is it?
Yeah. There's a map attached on, I think it's page 44. It's from the Ashburton Guardian. And in the bottom left-hand corner there, you'll see 2 hashed sections beside where it says stage 1. And there's actually a vertical line between those 2. The one to the right of that vertical line is proposed to be Recreation Reserve, so that's where a new playground would be established. And that's, I think, just under 3,000 square metres compared with the existing park, which is about 1,000 square metres.
So that could be a better option than what is there now, but if it goes out for consultation, then that can be fleshed out and get the best deal for everyone, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it's really important when we go out to consult that we just try and set the context in a factual but neutral way, so that people can see that there are alternative futures here that the change might actually produce a better outcome for the community than what they've currently got.
Hopefully get a win-win out of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Councillor Cameron.
Just a question. One of them was, what is the size of the, but you've just answered, what is the size of the current park? And it's about 1,000 squares, did you say?
Yeah, I believe it's around that size.
Yeah, okay. Point 15 on page 41, we know that at least one resident in the vicinity is likely to be opposed. Efforts to find out more about the origins of the park and the submitter's comments relating to a local campaign to establish the park have shed no further light on these matters. How are we going to get some light shed on these matters then, is my question. There must be some, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I made some inquiries with our staff in open spaces, and they made some inquiries of the former open spaces manager, Mr. David Askin, who was a very long-serving member of staff, and David had no recollection of it. Clearly the submitter had some recollection of it, and I may give her a call and see what she can add to the discussion.
Councillor McMillan.
This is probably a really dumb question, but I'm going to ask it. So when you're saying dispose, that means it's to be sold, and does that then mean that the subdivider gets the first option on that piece of land?
Actually, in terms of section 138, the definition of dispose is quite broad.
and in clause 21, the definition of disposal includes the granting of a lease for more than 6 months that has the effect of excluding or substantially interfering with public access to a park. So you can trigger the statutory definition of dispose without actually selling it. Okay. One of the subsequent steps in the process if the subdivision did ultimately proceed is that the subdivider would, in an ordinary case of events, develop a road on their land at their cost and then invest that asset back in council. So I'm not quite sure how that's achieved when the land is already in our ownership, but I'm sure that between the talented people in the planning department and Mr. Windleborn's experts in property law, they will find a way through that.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. My question is, how can a developer get to the point of marketing it publicly? It's marketed, real estate people involved, obviously lawyers. How can it get to this point where they've assumed that they're having our section, it's in their plan, without it being picked up somewhere on that journey, as far as consents and things like that go?
I think that is a question which would be better directed to the developer than to council staff. But they, when members of council staff saw the advertising in the newspaper when it first happened, that was before we'd received any subdivision application or any other detail of the proposal.
Thank you, because that's the bit I struggle with, is that the developer's been very presumptuous in assuming they're going to take that section, is my interpretation of it. I mean, I've been looked at it, and I see subsequently now a new plan in the paper shows how many sections have already got expressions of interest on them, which is, it's happening very quickly.
I'm always loath to jump to conclusions about why people do the things they do. I spent 10 years working in the human resources field, and when people first walk through your door with a HR problem, it often sounds cut and dried, and then when you look at the detail and you hear the other side, it suddenly appears much less cut and dried. So I don't want to cast aspersions on the developer here. They may well have a story to explain their actions that actually sounds much more reasonable than it might appear from the outside looking in.
Thanks for your explanations.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The blue stripes and the green stripes on the bottom right-hand corner, I guess the blue stripes are a bun for floodwater or stormwater. What's the green stripes?
I'm looking at a hard copy in which all my stripes are grey. I'm sorry. The blue one is a utilities reserve, so I'm assuming it has something to do with stormwater. And the green one would be intended to be recreation reserve for a playground.
And a supplementary. With the pedestrian service access, it runs right through to the road. Do they presume they're going to invest that in the district council and not play development expenditure? Because I know developers do that, and we end up having to mow a lot more grass and attend to a whole lot more ground. Is that what their option is there?
Yeah. This map is out of the advertising in the Ashburton Guardian. I know that we have received a subdivision proposal, which probably, if I were to study it, I might be in a position to answer some of those questions. But in fairness, Mr. York or Mr. Hyde would be better to do that. So I'm not familiar with the detail, and it may well be, of course, that having submitted their proposal after some feedback from our planners, that they might tweak their plans in any case. So this is an indication of what they plan, but it may not be what is finally proceeded with.
Sure. Supplementary, I believe they have a consent, and our policy is not to accept any more it's got to come before council before we accept any more land vested in us rather than a cash payment.
It's my understanding that they do not have a subdivision resource consent at this point.
Joe?
Through Mr. Mayor, I think what you're hearing is that the marketing material has preceded the application for subdivision. So they have their own reasons for that, and Richard is saying he couldn't suppose to answer that because only the developer can answer why they have begun to advertise the sections before they have applied for consent. So this information here, as far as I understand it, he said, looking at Jane, is that there has not yet been a consent granted for this subdivision. And they've begun marketing it in the absence of that consent for whatever reasons they have.
Jane?
Yes, the chief executive is correct. They have applied, but when this was first drawn to our attention by a submitter on the LTP, they hadn't applied at that point, so we didn't know anything about it. So although they've applied, it hasn't been approved as yet. It's still going through all the process.
I'll just come back to you. So, yep, okay. Lynette?
I'm actually totally opposed to it. But I'm just asking, if we let this go through, it's setting a precedent to other developers.
We're not letting this go through. We're looking at going out for some consultation on whether it should happen or not. We're not saying it's going to go through. It's going to go out for consultation. Could you just, perhaps Richard or Tony, just confirm what we're going out, what we plan to do here, if we approve?
Yep. Through you, Mr. Chairman, your understanding is correct. What we'll be doing is we'll be going out to the community saying that council has received this request to dispose of this park. We'd put some context around it, showing that this is part of a wider subdivision proposal where additional public space would be provided, etc. And what we're proposing specifically is that that council say that in this consultation that it's got effectively the option of disposing of the park or not, and inviting the community to indicate their preference amongst those options. When you've received those submissions, then you'll make a decision about whether you want to dispose of it or not. So today is not about do we agree or disagree, unless you are so opposed that you don't even want to consult on it. I'm suggesting that at this point you should keep an open mind and go out to your community because there are not only the possibility of a better park, but of course they're looking to develop 31 additional sections, and we know that there are concerns about the affordability of housing and lack of land supply, so any development that brings more sections onto the market is of benefit to the local economy. So there's a few things to balance up here.
So we need to keep an open mind.
Okay, so within that, the children are the disadvantaged ones because if there's a park going into this new subdivision, a playground won't likely happen for a few years out, and with those kids there will be playing on the street. And it is quite a quiet cul-de-sac going to be turned into quite a busy road. The children of this town down that end will be disadvantaged, but what I'm really concerned about, we're setting a precedent here that another developer can come along, they look at a council reserve, oh yes, we could put a road into here, and we've got one situation now at Recreational. A new subdivision's gone in there, and the fence that was supposed to have been in there hasn't been put in there, it's a post and rail, and we've got dogs and children coming into the reserve, and cars can't go in and out there. So we've really got to keep an eye on what's going on.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a look at this subdivision for some reasons. Basically that my daughter was looking at it. I know the area quite well. I started living in that area when I came here in '82. That wee area is a nice wee park, but to me it always looked like part of a section. Just a question I've got. It's basically a swap for this small section and we're getting a bigger section, the 3,000 square meters, is that part of it?
Yeah.
And also do we get play
We don't know that yet. This was going out for consultation to see what the community want. Do they want to dispose of this or do they not?
But,
And then the detail will be in that consultation document.
and I'm just looking a wee bit further, like, we can say, we might have an option to get rid of that V1 and have a bigger one, only 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 metres away in the new subdivision. So, I like to go out for consultation, but I think it's a good option for that side of town. And I think if the children have to wait for a year, the town school is about 1 block away with all their equipments.
Councillor Cameron.
Just a quick query through you, Mr Mayor. It's got stage 1. Jane, when they submit, do they have to submit future development opportunities as well, or future plans, or no, they just submit stage 1? So we don't know if they're going to subdivide further down?
They are going to, but they are quite entitled to submit in stages. That's quite common.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it has been signalled, no, that the rest of it will be 2, 3, 4, or whatever stages. Yep. Thank you.
Liz, we've had good discussion
I
on
was
this.
going to move the recommendation that council consults on the alternative options for disposal of 187 Grove Street under section 138 of the Local Government Act 2002 prior to making any decision on whether to dispose of this park.
Lane, second. Okay, open for debate. Roger.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would oppose that motion. I think there's been a lot of presumption out there just to proceed in the marketing of a subdivision, worthy and all as the subdivision may be, thinking that they can carry on and advertise it that they're going to run a road over someone else's property. There's no need in my mind why we should to exceed their request at all, and I agree with Councillor Lovett that it could create a precedent. There are procedures to go through the correct way, and they have not done it. So I don't think there's any need to consult on anything. So I would be voting against the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Mr Mayor, the problem I have is that I lack clarity on information before I come here today, and part of it is to do with my favourite lady computer program called Stella, because I could not read what is in page 44 in the shadows on the computer. I even tried the fingers to expand it out. So I come here with a view that these guys were really, whoever it is, were really, whoever GS is, was really pushing it by advertising beforehand. Then when they thought they'd had a few questions from the community, they thought, oh, hell, we might apply for a consent. Because we actually heard about it before they had applied for a consent, because we heard as an annual plan submission. But on listening to the advice from the staff, we have been approached, as I take it, and please correct me, we have been approached to see if we would do an alternative site for a park that we control, and I think under that we are obliged to consult. So I just twisted a wee bit from what my original stance was to I think because we have been asked, we are now obliged to consult. But I'm very, very unhappy with the way these people have gone about this development. To hear about it first in the community as long-term plan, then an application comes in, and then they presume that they're going to get some parkland and advertise it. It's not right. But we, as I understand it under the law, we have to consult.
Further speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, just a procedural matter. If we do not pass this recommendation, where does it leave the developers and council? Do we then say, right, if there's an agreement around the table that we don't wish to dispose of the property, do we then move another motion? Or if we do nothing, where does that leave us?
Angus, we'll just get a clarification, or did you want to answer John's question?
I'll attempt to answer it.
Okay.
Where it leaves us is a much less interesting question than where it leaves the developer. It leaves us where we are. It leaves the developer with a subdivision proposal where they had, where they felt that the most logical layout for the roading was to extend through the existing park, which is basically directly opposite where Catherine Street meets Grove Street. And so you sort of get this sort of loop arrangement in terms of access off Graham's Road and access off Grove Street. So they're then in a position of, well, how do we provide access in a road layout that actually looks sensible and works well, and having a long cul-de-sac coming in from the street probably isn't the most practical or sensible roading network. So, yeah, that's, I think, one of the issues that they would have immediately. I did want to say that I'm not sure that the reason for including the Recreation Reserve, the green hashed area, was just to provide an alternative park. I think in this case what the developer's trying to do is, this is stage one of I think might be 4 or 5 stages with about 90 sections. So they want to ensure that the children of people who buy in their subdivision have also got access to a park. And I think I understand exactly where councillors are coming from. The process feels a little bit like cart before horse, but we haven't heard the other side of that conversation. And if you were to go with the option which has been recommended, there is an opportunity through that process to fill in some of the gaps in information that currently, in terms of getting an explanation from the developer, for example, about why they've chosen this process, and to understand other potential pros and cons of the proposal.
Richard, Angus asked a question before about we were obliged to consult. Are we obliged to consult?
If you wish to consider their proposal any further, then yes, you must. If you just want to dismiss it out of hand, then no, you're not.
Right, thank you. I'm going to speak in support of the motion. I think, being down there and had a look at the little park, the solution that the developer is going to come up with could have a better park than what is there. Could. But I haven't got enough information yet. So I'd like to go out and consult and see what they are going to offer us for letting them use that piece of land as a roadway. So I'm supporting the motion and want to hear the other side of the story, or hear both sides of the story, actually. Yep. So Councillor Brahms, Councillor Brahms.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just one question. We start yelling and screaming and doing all things here. Has it been a genuine mistake from the developer? No. Or was it done purposely?
We can't answer that here, Councillor.
But I mean, the assumptions are made here straight away. It might have been a mistake. I don't know the developers. I wouldn't have a clue. But the way it's going here, it looks a bit...
But we will find out if we consult.
But I'm quite happy.
Yeah. Speakers for or against the motion, then I'm going to go for right of reply. Councillor Cameron?
I'm speaking for the motion. I think we should at least investigate the rationale behind the process, and anybody that's investing in the town and in the district, I think is worth giving them a fair shot to explain the situation and how they ended up where they did.
Thank you. Councillor Rawlinson?
Thank you. Just for clarification, now I presume that the motion is what's here, but Richard spoke at the beginning and said that he preferred option 2. So which one are we working on?
What's in the recommendation?
And what is in the recommendation is option 2.
It is. Thank you.
Right of reply, Councillor McMillan? Not required. Oh, John, I've asked for the right of reply. Yep. I'm going to put the motion. I am in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? 1, 2, 3 against. Passed. Thank you. Look forward to the consultation document.
Mr.
Moving
Mayor,
over to item number 13.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes.
may, when maps and that sort of thing are presented, can we have more clarity? Like, as I said before, it didn't matter what I did with my fingers on Stella, I still couldn't read those words.
But through you, Mr. Mayor, if you recall, we hadn't received a subdivision application. All we did was copy what was in the paper. So it's got nothing to do with Stella as to the quality of that map. That it was simply a replication of the marketing material as in the paper. So it might have been an inadequate map, but we didn't have an alternative map. There was no other material.
Take your point. Item number 13, the Mayor's report. 13.1, local government conference. 13.2, our district slogan review, and we had a workshop this morning to discuss the slogan review, and we've formed a view out of that and I have a motion for that council facilitates a review of the Ashburton District Council slogan, and also advise that the council, if we pass that motion, that the council will receive a report in August setting out the process for the review, including setting up a review panel that will include community and council representatives. Then the review panel will be tasked with developing options and undertaking public consultation. So that is the motion there. If I'm happy to... Oh, we haven't. Oh, yeah. The council facilitates a review of the Ashburton District Council current slogan is the motion. I'm happy to move that. Councillor, questions? We'll go for questions first.
No, I was going to second your motion.
Okay. Yep. Any further debate? Not. I'll put the motion on favour. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. So we'll get a report back on that in due course. Meetings held. It's actually 1 month today since the rain fell and the flood started. And we're in the recovery mode now after the civil defence emergency. The lots of farmers either side of the Ashburton River, mainly above, have been affected and some severely. I've been out there and seen some people. We've had our MP out there and other MPs. The Prime Minister's been here. I've been out with the Deputy Mayor. I think you've also been out surveying the damage and listening, and that was our job, is to listen and relay the information to where it needs to go to help these people get through. The $4 million the Prime Minister pledged, the criteria for that is being worked on as we speak, and hopefully it'll be there tomorrow, so the applications can start coming in for that. That's $4 million for Canterbury, which the affected areas are Ashburton, Waimakariri and so on. And it's to get the farms back to the productive state as quick as possible. There's been lots of helpers out there. They've come from all over the country, really. Volunteers, we've had organisations out there, Real Support Trust, Farming Army, the Fed Farmers, MPI, Lions Clubs, you name it, they've been here. People have come from Christchurch, people have sent fencing materials from up Blenheim Way. It's coming from everywhere. There's been monies donated to the Merrill Relief Fund. They've been donated to other funds as well. So, yeah, I think the farmers are getting a lot of support, and they will need it for some time going forward as well. So, need to be mindful of that. And thank you all for assisting and getting us to where we are today, because we're in the recovery stage, and also the staff of the council and other organisations for the work they've been doing, especially our recovery manager Tony. She's doing a great job coordinating inside this building. So thank you for all that's being done. Any questions on the Mayor's report? Councillor Floon.
Yeah, I noticed on the 18th of June, Deputy Mayor deputised for you for the meeting with the Ashburton police on the flood debrief. Was that a debrief from ADC's point of view, or was it a debrief from the police point of view?
If you hold that question, when we go over the page, we'll go into the Deputy Mayor's report and she can answer it there. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I don't know whether other councillors have had this question, but I've been asked, how did the councillors get on with the Prime Minister? Obviously, we were not in the loop one little bit, which I was a little disappointed for, because she came here quite a couple of times, and as interested in roading and things, I would have been interested to talk to the Minister of Transport.
Minister of Transport or the Prime Minister?
Well, yeah. People expected we were part of the loop when she came, which not necessarily, but I mean, when the Minister of Transport was here, those of us that were interested in the roading would have been interested to actually meet him to see when he was talking about the bridge.
Yeah, in defence of me, I suppose, is it was their visit and they set up what they wanted to do and who they wanted to see. And they wanted to see the Mayor to welcome them, and others, they specified who they would like to see. And we abided by that. This room was full of, when the Prime Minister was here, we had a meeting here just before lunch, and had the mayors of Waimakariri, Mackenzie, Selwyn, Timaru, their CEs, and Chair of ECAN. And the Prime Minister asked for all those people to be here. She wanted to talk to them. Yeah, we did what was asked, I suppose.
You weren't on the radar, Stuart.
But I shared council's views, I can tell you that, yeah. Councillor Lovett?
I was just going to ask, I said I had our welfare meeting last night with James Lamb, and he gave us a very good overview of what was happening and maps and things. And as councillors, we were kind of out on the sidelines, and I was just going to ask whether either James or somebody from there could come and just give us as councillors a whole overview of the whole event and what went well, what didn't, and just to keep us in the loop of what actually all went on, if that's possible.
You've had a debrief. We've had a debrief.
Yeah, he had some maps, and it was actually really quite well done what he did last night, all the learnings and stuff.
Yeah, and we're getting a once a week update from the recovery manager. Yeah. You'd like James to...
At the end of it, just give us his presentation, and yeah, it was actually quite good at the end. Give it another couple of weeks and give us a big overview, what they've learnt and where they're going to in the future and things like that.
Yes, I think maybe what I'm hearing is a distinction between review and a briefing as to what happened. So it sounds like it's for information only as opposed to a debrief, or we can put that in place in the fullness of time, so you have a greater understanding of the event. But council laws have had a debrief. The personnel involved with the EOC have conducted a debrief to take the lessons, etc. So if the need is to just simply understand better, then we can certainly do that in the fullness of time, but shouldn't be seen as another review, because in fact you have held that. Yeah, but if there's some more information that would be useful, then we can look to put that in place over the next month or so.
Okay. Councillor Fulham?
Yeah, I mean, we are getting those updates with the Friday flash, as I call it, the issues sheet. But I did thought we were going to have a full debrief later on in the year with what worked well, what didn't work well, with recommendations.
There was an undertaking for two separate debriefs. So council had their own debrief and perspectives on how it worked from the councillor's point of view, and how informed you felt and how you feed information into the EOC. So that has been held. Equally, the people who were most closely involved with the emergency and the operation of the EOC have also had a debrief, and to try and take the lessons and what went well and what could be improved, and that has been held. I'm not aware that there is another debrief to do those things yet again. So the debriefs from our perspective have been held, What I'm hearing from Councillor Lovett was more an information session to try and understand the event better, but not another review or a debrief.
Councillor Mackay.
Mr Mayor, I'm perhaps being a wee bit cheeky, but I'm hinging my comments that I'd like to make to the flood debrief, and I'm not looking for another debrief, but what I am looking for is that maybe this council should look at having a discussion with the senior river engineer about how they intend to put back the rivers. Now, some of you may say, why should we do that? Quite simply, this council has a representative, I think, on every rating district, and they will come back to the rating districts to get the feel of the community on how much they can afford to rate in the future. This will be at a later date. So I'm just wondering if we have a briefing session from the river engineer about what the requirements are to put the different flood committees, the different river committees, the different streams committees back together before we attend those meetings as individual, because as individual councillors we'll all have different views on how those rating districts should or should not accept a new rate to put the river schemes back together.
Yeah,
I don't know whether people in the room actually know what I'm talking about, but maybe council, the ECAN council has changed its modus of operandum since I've been around, but that's what used to happen, and I presume it still happens because I attended the Ashburton River Rating District AGM, and there they asked the level of rating for the coming year at that time. So all those rates that are being charged are now virtually out the window because of the extra work that will have to be done. So I'm just wondering if we collectively can have an indication of what might be happening out there. So when we go to the rating districts, we're not picked off as individual council members. We've got a collective decision.
Okay. So, Hamish?
Yes, I wonder whether the need would be met if we invited Environment Canterbury through the chair to meet with council to discuss the recovery of the or ongoing work needed in the rivers in the Ashburton district, and invite them to come and meet with us, and they could bring whatever representation they needed, because I don't think it feels a little odd for the councillors at a governance level to be meeting with ECAN river engineers, but I think if we invite the governors of ECAN to come and meet with councillors, and they may well bring river engineers, that would make good sense to me. But I think the dialogue needs to be with through the chair and the councillors of ECAN rather than directly to river engineers. But we will achieve the same outcome, of course.
Roger?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Your Councillor Mackay's quite correct, and I attended that meeting also, and from memory I brought to the table the matter of my concern about the amount of shingle in the north branch of the Ashburton River at Bland's Reach, but that's all over and done with now. But in relation to that emergency, there was an expectation from the public out there that I picked up that we would all be terribly busy, and honestly the public couldn't understand why I wasn't doing anything. I said, well look, we've got experts to do that, we've got trained people. The days are long gone when every farmer got his tractor and his trailer and he got his neighbour and they went out and fixed the thing. So, but there is an expectation out there in the community that we as councillors would be all very, very busy, and that was quite a surprise to some of them when I told them I was just staying at home to keep out of the road.
Yeah, I think part of that discussion will be around the the rating area, because the ratepayers that are rated now cannot afford to repair that river as they are now, so there's got to be a discussion around that, and it's an ECAN discussion because they rate for it, but we could raise it with them when they do turn up, that there's got to be a discussion on that. They've got to get more people paying for that river somehow, too, if they want it fixed, repaired. Angus?
Mr Mayor, I asked to speak again because I believe I've been misrepresented. When Roger Lethem Councillor Roger Lethem is at the Ashburton River Rating District meeting to decide the future of that rating district, he will be asked to vote accordingly. Now, I think that's an unfair position to put him in. Councillor Wilson will be at the Hines. Lower Hines? You still on the Lower Hines? Yes. They'll be asked, and they're there representing the council. But what I'm suggesting is that we actually have a position that we can take to those meetings. That's what I'm asking for. Because we're involved whether as individual councillors representing this council on those rating districts, whether we like it or not. We're there representing this council. So I think it would be easier for us to operate if we actually had a council position that we could operate from. Because otherwise, one will be saying something, but the other will be saying something else, except you've got my drift, I hope.
I understand what you're saying, yep. That's good. Okay, no further questions. I'll move we receive the Mayor's report. Second.
I'll second.
Councillor McMillan. Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you. Over the page, item number 14, Councillor reports. Councillor McMillan.
Oh, would you like me to answer that question on the New Zealand Police presentation? So through the chair, I was asked to go along to the New Zealand Police to do, I thought, just a debrief on the flooding. I got a phone call that morning to ask me if I could do a short presentation on leadership in crisis. Just changed slightly. So I spoke with Reuben Garcia, and we put together a short presentation and went along to the Ashburton Police Station, and the district and area commanders from Canterbury Police were all there, and basically they just wanted to know what happened during the floods, the leadership. It was probably good that I was there instead of Neil and Hamish, because then I could sing their praises, and they definitely communicated back saying that they just thought that both Neil and Hamish had done an excellent job communicating and showing great leadership. So yeah, it was all over and done with in about sort of 30 to 40 minutes.
Great. Anything else on your report, Councillor McMillan? Been busy. Councillor Mackay, your report? Nothing further to add, if anything?
No, it's all there. So, in actual fact, in my considered opinion, the Regional Council is going to have full control of the Regional Committee, and they will take from it whatever they like and probably have their own advisors there as well. But that's the way the Mayor's wanted it, so that's the way it is.
It's not the way the bulk of the Mayors wanted it, but Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I've got a question to Councillor Mackay. The second to last sentence, community members' expressions of interest will be called for. I thought I saw somewhere they were going to have other people as well as the key personnel in the first couple of paragraphs. Is that who can have expressions of interest?
I can send you the email that you can apply with if you wish to. They will be advertising for expressions of interest for the community representatives and also the chair. Sorry, the co-chair appointed by ECAN, not the one appointed by Ngāi
Okay, so Councillor Lovett, you've got your report there. Need to add anything? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Roger.
Could I ask Councillor Lovett a question? Your comment under future of local government, with water going, will roading be next? Do you know something I don't know? Is water definitely going?
It's just a thought.
Yeah, put your lot of turn yours off.
It was just a thought a few of us had, you know, just some of the comments flying around. Is this the start of the I guess, government, what they're doing, and with David Parker going on his speech, they kind of want everything kind of under control, not out too widely, and that was some of the thoughts we did have.
So this is just your opinion rather than any facts. Okay. Carrying on, one good idea came from discussion from the Ruapehu District Council study of livability and affordability, a community-led study that focused on housing, health, education, employment, environment, accessibility and social well-being. What was their good idea that we're not doing?
To help me that with they're actually doing a study in all their little towns right through their county and finding out all the issues, what was going on in them, what issues had been addressed, what issues hadn't been addressed, and were the agencies doing the job they said they were going to be doing, and if not, how could they get that done better? And they felt they really had a good understanding of all their people's needs. Right through their communities, and they had a basis of something to work from in the future.
I think is that the one where they had the computer program which Dot Loves Data? Is that the name of it? Where focused down into each, burrowed down to each community, rather than using averages, and that gave good meaningful data for specific communities.
Yeah, that was the difference. It wasn't done at a district level. It was done at a very granular level, and my recollection is that I think the Ruapehu district has something like 6.4% unemployment, but Taumaranui, as a town in their district, had unemployment at 18%. So if you take the 6% kind of average, you make a whole lot of assumptions about your community. What they were doing was not making those assumptions and drilling down into quite specific parts of the district at a very, as I say, very granular level, and they were learning things that were not open to them via averages and more broad-based stats. So that was the genesis of Councillor Lovett's point.
Councillor Fuller?
Yeah, just following on from Councillor Lovett, basically it was like a community audit of the services that each of those large number of what I would call small communities were receiving. And if anyone wants to go on and have a look at it, it's on their website.
And the information, for if we signed up to it, would be available for this community as well. So I'd like to move that we receive the councillors' reports. Councillor Rawlinson, Councillor Cameron.
May I make a comment too there? Just a comment about what Councillor Lovett has just spoken about. Our Caring for Communities group would address quite a few of those issues in there. Would Liz would agree?
Yep.
I was just thinking that as listening to everybody speak that we probably are doing a lot of that work but under a different umbrella.
Yeah, yes, and the presentation wasn't so much about how they were addressing the need. The presentation was largely on the piece of work they'd undertaken to highlight the differing needs within the district, and then the solutions were different, therefore, for one part of the district to another, and that was the genesis of the data-based project.
I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. 2012 Annual General Meeting Remits. How would you like to handle these? Would you like to agree or disagree? Because I will vote on them at the conference in Venham in the end of this month. John?
Can we just leave it up to our attendees to vote in what they think is in the best regards of the district?
You can do that, but if you have any preference between now and then, please talk to me or whoever's going to the conference. Liz is going and Caroline's going. And Lane, yeah.
Yep.
So we'll make a decision. I won't, well, obviously I'll push the button, but I'll confer with the others before I do that.
I agree with Councillor Falloon. You sometimes it's very easy to sit away back here and offer instructions, but when you get up there and you get the debate going and there's other factors come into it, so I'm more than confident and happy to leave it to the delegation that are going.
Thank you. Lynette?
I was happy to leave it with the ones that are going too, but just this tree one in Auckland, would their district plan work that one out? Because does it have to be nationally a big remit? Because it is their problem and a lot of other towns don't have that, and I sort of fail to understand why that has to be a remit, really.
They obviously think it's important for them.
And just remembering, there is now a vetting process for remits. So we know, for example, some proposed remits from councils not too far from here that haven't made the list. So the vetting process has agreed with the Auckland Council that the need exists. So the examination of the matter has confirmed that the remit has merit. So they've come to a slightly different view, perhaps.
Moving on to the item 15, the financial variance report for May. Shall we go through it page by page, or do you want to go straight to something you are interested in an answer on? We're up to page 5. 6 or 7. Stuart.
Yes, page 5 again. I seem to harp on every meeting. 7 million roading that hasn't been spent. I thought we were going to try and transfer some of that money into urgent work that we could reclaim the money next year to balance it. That's a huge amount carried over because of the CBD. But I hate seeing subsidised money not being spent.
You can
Neil?
Yeah, through the chair. As you well noted, a large proportion of that is the CBD, and what's left from the CBD, we certainly have got that as a priority to spend and get that committed as quickly as possible. And we've got this month, which is just about finished, but for the last few weeks we've been going as fast as we can to get that spent.
Page 7. Nine. You will stop me if I go past what I'm sure. Councillor Flown.
Yeah, I note, particularly I'm looking at page 7, drinking water income and expenditure report. We've spent 21% of what we've got budgeted for the full year forecast. I mean, it's not that wonderful, is it, statistic?
No, but page 8 explains why.
Yeah, I know, but still, if we budgeted, I would have expected more than 21% to be spent.
But there's good reason it's okay. Page 9. John, another question?
Oh, sorry.
Page 11. Stuart.
I'm up to page 15, I'll be ahead of you.
There then.
The Hines Recycling Drop-Off Yard. I thought that I had a bit of input that not to put it where they are putting it, but it seemed to be that the waste manager is determined to put it where he wants to put it. So it wasn't where local people wanted it.
Has it been, Neil?
Yes, we have discussed that and looked at the alternatives, and there were several reasons why it couldn't be. I had thought that had been well discussed and with the locals, but I'll look into that and follow up on that.
Yep. 17. Reserve boards. 21. 23. 25. 'Stuart?
Yes, I think it's time the Water Zone Committee, I know I'm the chair, it's time it was reactivated again.
Stock
We haven't
water,
had-
you mean?
Stock water. Yeah, yeah. It was back a bit further,
Yeah, on page 25. Did you want to liaise, as chair of that, liaise with the
yes,
group
we haven't had a
manager?
meeting for quite a while, and I think it's time that we
It'll be
reactivated
Neil.
the strategy
We'll,
committee.
we'll make a note of that and get a meeting in place.
That looks after this, that's the surface water strategy as well. That does that one.
I assumed you were referring to the trial of the piped stop water.
Right. Yep. Okay. 29. 31, the balance sheet. John.
Yeah, just looking at the balance sheet, we're in a very, very, very healthy situation at the moment. Basically, our external loans are up $28.6 million. Of that, we've spent 30.726 on infrastructure, which has all gone into work in progress at this stage. And we've also got another 24 million in the bank type of thing. So, yeah, we're very healthy.
Yep, Stuart.
I've got a question. External loans, have we got any idea what sort of money is included in external loans regarding our three waters at this stage, or is that too premature to know?
No, we have done that work, Paul. Can you comment on the number?
So, Mr. Mayor, I don't have it off the top of my head, but you'll remember that we swapped internal loans to external loans to clearly identify what the debt was against the three waters. So I can get that information to you.
My recollection, Councillor, is that it is on the local dashboard that was released this morning by the DIA. It does have a part of that dashboard. One of the panels on that is a debt and revenue ratio, and the quantum of debt is described there.
Yeah, it's a bit over 30 million, and if you add the three items up here, it comes up to exactly around about that. So,
And that's the data we submitted to them, so you'd expect it to be the same.
Yep, John.
Yeah, the information Councillor Wilson is after is actually on page 33.
Yep. So if we lost the waters, then the 30 odd million would go with the waters. Yep. 34, 35. That's the end of the report. We need to receive that. Councillor Floon, Councillor Cameron, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. That there's no other extraordinary item. What was that? And committee, right. So that takes us to the end of the open part of committee, open part of the meeting. We move into committee. Can I have a mover? We move in, please. Councillor Brown, Councillor McMillan. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you very much. The media and the member of public shot away.